Hello guys, welcome back to another video. And yes, inflation on UK came a bit crazy, you know, a bit of a higher CPI, a bit of a lower PPI. What is going on, you know? We was, you know, exactly on the moment at 4 p.m. when we were watching the charts. That was a pretty strong move. Euro pound, pound dollar, pound yen, and some other pound, you know, pairs. And today we're here to break down what just happened with this data, and as well we want to talk about what's going to happen with the CPI tonight on Europe. All right, so the Euro area, the Eurozone. Nathan, welcome. You know, so good to have you here and discuss with us this this data that came in from UK. Guys, please stay with us until the end of this video that we'll be disclosing my favorite trade, and you can disclose your favorite trade. Yeah, perfect. And we're gonna go from there. So before we start, please subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up on this video, and share this content with your friend. We are always here promoting and giving to you free content, you know, free educational video and updates on the market. So the only thing you can do for us is, you know, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and share this content with your friends. Nathan, I will let you start. Because you were pretty excited. I think you were holding some positions on the pound there.
I was.
It did work out pretty well.
Is it a big deal though, Luca? Well, like when I look at it, 1.9 was the target.
Yes, correct.
It comes in at a magical 2%.
Yes.
It isn't a huge difference, is it? So
that's the CPI, right? That's the consumer price index. That's for the consumers.
Correct.
Right?
Very true.
Yes.
And then we're looking at a scenario where if inflation is sticking around.
Correct.
Are we going to see inflation now putting in these higher bottoms?
Yep.
So does this give us a bit of a precursor to say it's going to be more difficult for central banks to get inflation under control?
Definitely.
Like they used to.
Yes.
But not a big change on the CPI side. What are your thoughts?
I mean, no changes at all from the previous as well, okay? Because from the previous that was 2% and now to the actual that was 2%. There's no changes, but the whole market consensus was expecting a 0.1 difference from the previous to the actual, and unfortunately it didn't happen and it stayed the same. So we can say that yes, it's a high inflation reading, the consensus, but still pretty much the same consensus. Sorry, still pretty much the same as the previous. So when we take this data, nothing actually happened, Nathan. Right? It's the same thing that I go there and come back to the same spot. Pretty much nothing happening. Okay?
Well, the thing that's happening is it's not going down.
Oh, well, that's what they wanted, but it's not happening. That's correct.
True. But what about the producer side? I think.
Yeah, okay. So I have the numbers for the producer side, and that was the exactly thing that made the whole move on the pound, okay? Because we need to understand something. The central bank needs to look at the CPI, of course, the consumer price index. That's for the consumer price index, and the PPI as well for the producer price index, for someone that is producing and someone that is consuming, right? Because
they might need to pass it on.
Correct.
Right.
Thanks, Nathan. Because when you have a business, you don't want to take the inflation to you. You want to hedge this inflation, putting on the product and selling to the suppliers, and then the suppliers will sell it to the demand.
Yes.
Right. So that's pretty simple. And we see here that makes, you know, when we look to those numbers, it makes sense for me because we didn't have inflation on the CPI. Okay.
Sure.
So from 2% to 2%, no changes, and the PPI came in at negative 0.8%, and the consensus was 0.1% positive, so 0.1 was the consensus. And the previous was revised down as well to negative 0.6%. So that means that the producer is not having inflation, okay? That doesn't mean that the prices will decrease, okay? It just means that the producer is not having inflation and therefore it's not passing on to the consumer. Now, will this change anytime soon? Yes, most probably the prices will decrease, you know, the supermarket prices will decrease in a 6-month time. Now the other question comes in. Is the Bank of England looking to the PPI as well to reduce the rates? Or are they only willing to reduce the rates by the CPI.
Well, 2% is the target, right?
2% is the target, that's
So
correct.
they're at target.
That is correct.
There's no PPI pressure.
That is correct. But the whole thing now is that they need to wait to the PPI to come lower so that they can continue to cut the rates and the prices to come low as well. Otherwise, if they continue to, put the rates lower,
yes.
property prices will still pretty high, and then people will get easy money, more easier, and then we'll continue to buy real estate. So that's going to be...
Which is a large portion.
Yeah, which is a large
of
portion.
that CPI. So
correct.
That continues to put pressure. So therefore, the thinking is we need to really see clear signs.
Yes.
That it's crossed the finish line almost,
rather
than just kind of at it.
At it, yes, correct.
Which could be a higher bottom.
Could be, yes.
Right, if the trend is up. So it could be resistance acting as support.
Yes.
Right, and we start to see it continue higher. So cutting now.
That is correct.
Is probably not something they're going to do. So in your view then, does the pound still maintain its strength though?
Yes and no. I do think that the pound is due to a correction. Okay. And the only reason when we look to the GBPUSD, for instance, all right, I think that's the most traded asset when it talks about the pound.
Which I'm a bit loaded up in at the bottom of this weekly range.
Yes,
so
that's correct.
I'm really glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, so I do believe that we most probably going to have a correction on the pound. Okay. And that's due because we are seeing some strength coming in for the US dollar.
That's true.
So we did had some hawkish peak from Jerome Powell on Monday, and then we had higher than expected data for retail sales yesterday on the US dollar side as well, on the USA. And then today, we're going to have the we're going to have the Europe CPI, and that's a negative correlation with the US dollar. So, Nathan, that's the time that everything's come together and then everything changed the side.
True.
So I do believe that the pound is due to a correction, and I do believe that we may have a correction anytime soon, okay? So maybe next week or 2 weeks after that, we're probably going to be able to see GBPUSD giving us a correction a little bit down on the price.
Because both the cable and the euro dollar are both in uptrends right now.
Yes, and they're
up at weekly resistance levels.
That is correct. Yep.
And the dollar index, which is the relative strength of all those majors, are right down the bottom. So for me, I'm looking at this and saying, do I really want to be selling US dollars through this level right now, considering there's no real clear weakness and strength in play? It seems to be a bit mixed. Like we're contracting, as we've talked about. Are we heading towards a stagflationary environment? And we have no clear indication.
We don't have a clear indication. That's correct. Yeah. So with that, today as well at 7 p.m. in Australian time, we will have Europe CPI.
Oh, I'm so excited about it.
I'm very excited about it.
I mean, it sounds so boring.
Yes.
And they are in the middle of their summer. They're hitting the beaches.
Yep.
It's nice and hot over there from what I'm hearing.
Inflation is not that high over there as well. Okay. Sure. Oh. And it's on a decrease path.
And they're cutting rates.
And tomorrow we're going to have ECB. Most probably pausing the rates. But
true,
still,
very true. But before we get to that, if they're cutting rates and their rates are well below, say, the UK and the US, and their prices continue to ease, does that mean does that provide a driver to be short euros?
Short euros, yes. I do believe, in my personal opinion, I do believe on that because I'm a big believer that yes, euro dollar can reach 1.10, sorry, but at the same time, I do believe that it can come back down on the range.
True.
Because we are not having sufficient data and sufficient approach from Jerome Powell to leave euro strong to continue up.
Yeah.
The only reason we had euro going up the past couple of weeks, since the beginning of this month, is because of the French elections that had a little bit of a supportive effect into the euro because of the right side was winning on the pool. But then when we had the actual draw, now the market it's a little bit, okay, we go up a bit, but then we stay there.
Yes,
right?
And the big players could be looking to sell
oh, yeah, definitely.
At these levels where there is this appetite for retail traders
Correct.
now to buy.
Yes.
The way I look at the euro is like English soccer teams. Like you get all excited and you're thinking, wow, they're in the final, but then they become completely disappointing, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking the euro at this point reminds me of that. It's looking really strong, but do I really want to buy it up this high?
Yep.
No clear indication technically for me there, and no real clear indication regarding their economy, their interest rates and CPI at this stage.
Correct. So I have the numbers here. I'm just going to read it out here.
Go for it.
So the CPI year over year, the month of June, so from June last year to June this year, the consensus at 2.5% and the previous was 2.6, so 0.1% lower.
Okay.
The CPI month of a month and from month of June is expected 0.2% from the previous of 0.2%, so no changes as well.
On the European side?
Yes. Now, what the central bank cares is not the actual CPI, it's the core CPI. Because central bank can't control food and energy prices.
Sure.
Right? And
it's hot and it's summer.
Yes,
and
yes, correct,
right,
correct.
So, good point.
So people are using, the air conditioning more, and that generates more electricity. Right?
It does.
So
It does.
that's one thing that no one thinks about, but I'm thinking. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So the core CPI is expected to be no changes as well, from 2.9% to consensus of 2.9%.
They're cutting. They're at 2.9 and they're cutting.
Mate,
They've already cut.
Yeah.
The UK is at 2 at target, and it may not cut.
May not cut. No.
Does that mean that the pound's the winner right now?
Yeah, when we look to EURGBP, for instance, pound is much more stronger than the euro.
And that is a like driver-wise, that's a good
course.
explanation.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So, guys, I hope you guys could get something out of this video.
I did.
Okay, cool. I did as well. Please subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up on this video, and share this content with your friends. For those who are not yet on the community of the Telegram, the link is on the description. So we do post daily content there. And for those who are, want to have a chat with me, I will be live tomorrow from 7 to 8 p.m. on the webinar. So just register yourself down on the description as well. Otherwise, you want to say anything else?
Sure, folks, if you've got a trade idea that you're looking at and are looking to execute, sometimes it's handy to just run it by another pair of ears, just to hear it. Remember, my details are here. I deal with a lot of our high net worth clients and bespoke clients, but I'm more than happy to do a quick chat with people about the markets because it's what I love to do. So feel free to either speak to your account manager or even call into the office, okay? And I'd be more than happy to have a chat as well.
Definitely. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.